grab a drink, and an axe. Because I'm still angry Charlize Theron won't be playing Furiosa in the new Mad Max film. In this video, we'll be taking a deep dive into Netflix's The Old Guard and how the ending lays the groundwork for a potential sequel. But before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe because I'm always coming up with new videos, theories, and deep dives. The Old Guard follows Andromaca of Scythia, an immortal warrior who leads a band of mercenaries named after the oldest currently active regiment in the US Army. They're also just old because, hey, they're immortal. Andromaca, or Andy as she's called, is the oldest of the Immortals, with the comics stating that she could be born as far back as 4500 BC, originating in Scythia, which is modern-day Eurasia. In Greek mythology, the character of Andromaca translates to fighter of men, and her character represented the suffering of women during the Trojan War. Andy herself has known nothing but suffering for thousands of years. The first person she met who was immortal like her was sentenced to spend eternity drowning over and over again in an iron coffin. Her lover was killed on the battlefield in front of her. Andy has become jaded with life and the world in general.
The world can burn for all I care.
While waiting in the lobby at the hotel, Andy sees on the news images of the civil war in Syria and unrest in Haiti. It seems no matter what she and the Old Guard does, it doesn't have any impact on the world. And we'll find out later this couldn't be further from the truth. In order for Andy to grow as a character, she'll need to realize that life is worth living and that the Old Guard does indeed serve a worthwhile purpose for humanity. At the end of Act 1, Andy and the Old Guard are set up by a man named Copley. He's lured them into a trap to show this big pharmaceutical manufacturer Merrick that immortals exist. You see, Copley lost his wife a few years back and believes that if the powers of these immortals can be studied, perhaps it can prevent diseases like the one that took his wife's life. What he doesn't know is that Merrick doesn't care at all about helping humanity. He's in it for the money.
What do you see?
The Nobel Prize?
And a fair few quid to boot.
In Afghanistan, we meet Niall Freeman, a Marine who finds out she is immortal as well. Unlike Andy, she isn't jaded by the world, believing that she can make a difference. We see her giving out candy to local children and helping a group of women whose town has been terrorized by a terrorist. After finding out she's immortal, the Old Guard are alerted to her presence via dreams.
We dream of each other. They stop when we meet.
It's only when they're brought together do these dreams stop, so they believe being together is their destiny. They join forces to take on Merrick and Copley, knowing that they can never live in peace until they are stopped. While hiding out in France, the team is attacked and Joe and Nikki are captured. Andy knows what it's like to lose a team member. Centuries ago, she lost Quinn, so she makes it her mission to free Joe and Nikki, perhaps hoping it will give her some redemption. But as Andy, Booker, and Niall prepare to infiltrate Copley, Niall says this life isn't for her. She wants to be with her family, even though Booker says it will torture her to watch them grow old and die.
Everyone you love is gonna grow old. It's gonna suffer and it's gonna die.
Andy gives her a gun and sees her off, but Niall later finds the magazine is empty and remembers it was Booker who gave it to her. She knows she has to go back because Booker is planning to betray Andy, and that's exactly what he does. He shoots Andy not knowing that she's lost her immortal power. Yes, the immortals can lose their power, they just don't know when. There's this great, albeit awkward scene where Andy buys bandages at a local drugstore, opting to throw everything in the bin because she's likely never had to buy bandages before. Booker has betrayed Andy and the Old Guard because he believes if Merrick can find a cure to extending life, then perhaps he can also find a cure to ending theirs. For Booker, life has been nothing but endless pain and suffering, having to watch his family die and he can't even kill himself to end the pain. He wants a way out and he sees it with Merrick. Booker, however, immediately regrets his decision when he finds out Andy can be killed. He and her are subsequently captured, leaving only Niall and Copley to come to the rescue. Copley has jumped ship too, realizing Merrick has gone too far. He's intending to lock up the Old Guard as his prisoners forever if that's what it takes.
I will carve slices of you for years to get what I want.
Niall learns that Copley has been tracking the Old Guard for years, seeing how their actions have impacted the world for good. For example, years ago they saved a woman who would later give birth to someone who would prevent nuclear war, develop medical advancements, etc. For every life they save, it creates an exponential effect, shaping humanity for the better.
When you think about how old you are, the good you've done for humanity becomes
exponential.
Niall ends up saving the team, and before the final confrontation with Merrick, Andy tells Niall that losing her immortality was no coincidence. Niall was brought into her life to make her remember that there are still things worth fighting for.
You reminded me they're people still worth fighting for.
Niall sacrifices herself by standing in the way of Andy, getting shot and throwing herself off the building with Merrick. Andy has gone from not giving a shit about the world to basically threatening Copley in one of the final scenes to help them fulfill their purpose of making the world a better place. This is all a setup for a sequel, which begins with the excommunication of Booker. As punishment for his betrayal, Booker is forced to live 100 years away from the Old Guard. This is actually a pretty big punishment since the Old Guard have been his only family for the past couple hundred years, and now he's going to have to say goodbye to them. 6 months later, Booker has turned to the drink and comes home to see Quinn, one of the original members of the Old Guard, the one who apparently went crazy after being locked in an iron coffin and drowned for centuries, forced to die over and over again. It's kind of ironic then that when we see her, she's drinking a glass of water. Andy has always felt guilty for Quinn's fate. She promised to look for Quinn, but they never found her. Now, here's a spoiler warning for chapter 2 of the comic, which hints at where a sequel would likely go. In the comic, Quinn's character is known as Noriko and becomes the main villain. She wants revenge on Andy for leaving her to die, although in the book she's thrown off a ship during a storm. The Iron Maiden is totally cooler. She'll likely be teaming up with Booker on her quest for revenge, although how she gets him on her side remains to be seen. That being said, an immortal who has gone full crazy will likely pose a serious hindrance for the Old Guard, especially Andy, who is now mortal. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to leave a like and comment about what you thought of the Old Guard below. For more bad takes, follow me on Twitter at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember,
Daddy loves you very much.